Gregg Brown, we're finally doing this.
We are.
I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you so much for obliging the invitation to the podcast. We start every podcast with a little bit of a gift. Now, it was really difficult kind of getting a gift for you because you have gifted me so much. We usually go with books and little Funko Pop toys on the show, but you have given me many book recommendations, some of which I'm still pouring through at the moment. So I thought to myself, what could I give Gregg that would be a token of appreciation for all that he's done? And I took a deep dive on your Instagram, and I saw that you have an affinity for Thai Buddhas.
Oh, I do.
As a matter of fact, you have one at your cottage, at your second house, right by the lake.
I do.
What is the fascination, or what is the symbolism of the Thai Buddha mean to you?
Well, I really like the Thai Buddha for a few reasons. One, to me, whenever I look at it, it's a very peaceful symbol. And so I've had one for years. Like when I lived in Vancouver, I had one in my backyard. And then I have one in my backyard in the city. And then I thought, I need to get one at the lake. And then I bought another one for the lake. And then I just bought another one for the lake. And I think, regardless of what the symbol is, we all need these signposts in our lives that ground us. And Absolutely. That is something that mine does.
And Bailey and I had the good fortune of staying at your cottage at one point. And while we were there, at night especially, it's a nice, beautiful property. It's facing the lake. At night, it got a little scary for us.
Yes.
But we were very fortunate that you placed some very strategically placed Buddhas around the house that just anchored us and helped us feel calm in those moments of fearful transition. So the gift that we have for you, sir, is... And the box is hilarious. It says, a sophisticated and elegant, high-quality product.
Oh, my
A
goodness.
mini Zen garden.
Oh, my gosh. I've always wanted one of these. Thank you so much.
That is yours, sir. And that is a little...
so fun.
Yeah, hopefully you can find a nice place in your home or your office.
I'll put it down in my office. That's usually where I put them, and that keeps me calm through all my conversations. So.
Lovely.
Thank you so much. That's very kind.
That's all yours. That's all yours. And we'll hook you up with a bag for that afterwards as well.
Thank you so much.
By the way, is it true that you were you were part of the team that brought some of the first Starbucks to Canada?
Yeah, I was really fortunate. It was back in, I think, 1989, so nearly 30 years ago. And Barb Reed and a woman named Joanne, I can't remember her last name, and Patty Vickers were three women who were in Vancouver. And, they just started opening a few stores as part of, the rollout into Canada. And I was one of the first people to be brought on as another store manager, and worked with them to open a number of the new stores in Vancouver. And I mean, back then, I think we maybe opened 20 or 30, in a few years, whereas now it's so scaled.
Absolutely. It made sense because starting in Portland, and then it had the vertical, Seattle over there, the vertical expansion up to Vancouver. And now here we are enjoying the fruits of your labor many, many years later.
Well, it wasn't just me. I was a small little cog in the wheel.
I will give you all the credit. But no, you're right. Your team gets all the credit as well, just as much credit as you do. Why has change become such a focal point for you over the years? And so it'd be great if, in answering this question, you could sort of give us a quick overview of your career journey until now, maybe some of the milestones that you'd like to share with us, and how is it that change ultimately became, change management, change leadership became the focus of what it is that you talk and write about today?
Well, I think it really started off back when I was about 10 or so. And I remember sitting down some friends in front of a chalkboard that I had on my wall of my bedroom. And I don't know if kids had chalkboards on their wall, but I did, because I wanted to be a teacher. And so we were working out some math problems. And I just remember thinking, this is really fun. And then, in the teen years, I was in summer camp every summer as a counselor in training, and teaching canoeing and crafts. And again, watching the light bulbs come on with people gave me so much juice. And, I went through a couple of little jobs here and there trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then when I landed at Starbucks, that's where I really got into the training education piece. One of the women named Gay Niven, who worked there, just ignited this bug in me, and I realized that's what I really, really wanted to do. And it wasn't just about training. It was about helping people learn something new that's going to better their lives in some capacity. So whether that was, at Starbucks, or whether it was with kids learning to do that, or in some of my later work, it was really about how can I help, and how can I help people do things that they want to do better. And there's a lot of barriers to that sometimes. Like we have our fear of failure, We have your fear of what other people are going to think. There's also all those things that come when you're in the workplace with how's this going to impact me and my job? How busy am I going to get? How productive am I going to get? And, you know, I really looked at, these are the barriers I've had to go through and work through. And I really enjoy helping other people do that too, and giving them practical. For me, you know, there's a lot of different change models out there and a lot of different change theories, and I think they're all good. What for me that I've found that's made the biggest difference in my life and the people I've worked with are those small, simple, practical, manageable steps. And if you do those simple things on a daily basis, for me, I believe that gives the best results.
Small, simple, practical, and daily.
And manageable.
As well.
Not crazy. We're going to do this, and this. I know there's lots of books out there that say, you know, set 30-year goals and set this and set that. And that may have worked at some point, and it might work for some people.
Right. Why does it have to be small, though, Greg?
Because I think if we make things too complex, we don't do them. Right? So if you're in a business and you set a big strategic plan and don't break it down into manageable goals and objectives, you'll never do the strategic plan.
No, never.
It's like New Year's resolutions. If you say, oh, I want to quit smoking or eat less or smoke more or whatever your New Year's resolution is, it's great to have that lofty idea. But what are going to be the simple, practical, manageable things you do on a daily basis so you don't engage in that behavior?
Absolutely. And I like that framework right there. I think is going to be very helpful to myself, Kwaku, to all the listeners over here for breaking down our large, what do they call them? Big, hairy, audacious goals.
I know.
Into simple,
don't even
bite-sized
get me started
pieces.
on that concept.
No, but please, let's actually go down and talk about the big, hairy, audacious goals and why that seems to be the thing that, especially in the startup field, seems to be the phrase that's toted around by entrepreneurs left, right, and center.
Everybody who's listening may disagree with me, but I have found that in my work and in the people I work with, I think it's great to have big, hairy, audacious. It's great to have those. I'm not saying don't have them.
Right.
But you have, for goals to manifest in your life, you have to believe you can do them. They have to be realistic, and they can be a bit of a stretch goal. I'm fine with a bit of a stretch goal. But if you make something too far out, people are going to be like, I'm never going to get there.
Yeah, it crosses into the realm of vision. It crosses into the realm of dream almost.
And vision
right?
is good if you can make it a reality. And you want to have a vision of what you can do. When I used to coach entrepreneurs and younger folks 20 years ago, they would always say to me, if they were making $50,000 a year, they'd say, I really want to make $200,000 a year. Hey, that's awesome.
Let's take some steps.
Do you see yourself doing that in the next 2 years? And they'd be like, oh, no. I said, what about next year? How much do you think you can make next year? And they'd pick a number. And the number isn't even relative to what the work it is. The number is relative to what they believe they can do.
Right.
If you do not see yourself being able to make another $25,000 this year, you will not, no matter what business you are in.
You have to visualize it.
Yeah. If you do not see yourself as a non-smoker, you will never be a non-smoker. You know, to give you an example of a big, hairy, audacious goal, which I speak about on stage, my mom back, in the 70s or 80s, I can't remember, no, it would have been 70s, was a relatively larger woman. We would call them big boned back then out of courtesy. And she was going to lose weight as part of her New Year's resolution. So she put a picture of Farrah Fawcett Majors, who was one of the first Charlie's Angels.
Yeah.
And if you were a boy back then or a girl back in the 70s, she had long blonde hair, and a little skimpy red bathing suit, and everybody had it on their wall. Boy or girl, didn't matter. My mom put that picture on the refrigerator. It was a completely unrealistic vision of success. There's no way she's ever going to look like Farrah Fawcett. So, of course, it was not motivational. It was discouraging.
Yes, demotivational.
And that is the challenge with big, hairy, audacious goals. You have to find the balance around feeling like you can do it and taking the steps. If it feels so out of touch and you'll never see there, you'll never do it. It's like if being a speaker, Hamza, like me, it's like if you never see yourself on stage speaking in front of 1,000 people, you never will.
No.
You have to be able to see yourself accomplishing that. And that's all personal stuff, right? Like it's not about the goals and objectives. Those help. But it's about being able to realistically believe that you can do that.
I'm glad you touched on that, Greg. I think that for most of my life, I was a deficit thinker. And I think that was a product of the environment that I was raised in. I think that was a product of my parents coming from a background of scarce economics.
Me too.
And I remember being told for most of my life, like, hey, you know what? Like, have realistic dreams. Like, see as far as you can, move towards that. Just take small little increments towards success. But then when you transition into the public speaking realm, like I have, for the first couple of years, I was floundering. I didn't know what was possible. I was just grateful to have a room of 5 people, and I was grateful to not charge because I was like, hey, I'm happy to be here. But then I started talking to people like Drew and yourself and Alan and some of my peers right now, Blake, so on and so forth. And you're right. You have to dream bigger. You have to see bigger. You have to imagine yourself on that TED stage. You have to imagine yourself rocking that 5,000, 10,000 person keynote.
And if you can't see yourself do it, then just take it down a notch.
Yeah.
Like drill it down till it becomes a little bit of a stretch so that you can see yourself. So your ultimate goal might be to do, let's say, a 10,000 person arena.
Sure.
If that's something, it's not my goal, but if that's someone's goal,
the Air
great.
Canada Centre.
Yeah, let's say that's your goal, great. For me, it's not my goal, but it can be anybody's. So, you know, that's your big goal. And I'm like, if I was, 25 starting out speaking, that might seem too big for me to get there. At this point, for some people, it might not. And if you look at people like Lady Gaga, obviously she saw herself doing that and she did it. Whereas for the rest of us who are, in a different bracket, it needs to be, maybe it's being on stage in front of 350 people. Can you see yourself doing that? Yeah, that's doable. Well, let's get you there and then we'll do the next stage. And I think it's going to be different for everybody.
I think so. And I think that's what makes celebrity so understandable, right? Because the leap that person would have had to take. So thinking about Lady Gaga, when she was Stephanie Germanotta, playing small little clubs, doing burlesque shows for maybe just family and friends, to now rocking the Rogers Center. I mean, we celebrate her for making that huge leap. But I think that somewhere in her transition story, somewhere in her evolution, she sat down and thought to herself, this is good right now, but I want that. And then she doggedly pursued it. Well, but you're right. She accrued enough permission space over time to be able to do that.
And I think for people like celebrities like that, I think they discover, and I believe this for a lot of true people who are very successful at a very young age, and which I was not one of them. I believe that they have something in their core, in their DNA. If you believe in past lives, it could be that, where they get around to this time. And at 8 years old, they know they want to be a singer.
Something about it, right? Yeah.
I knew I sort of wanted to do something with teaching, but I didn't have that ingrained core in my DNA. But if you look at any of those celebrity, baseball players, sports stars,
sure, actors,
yeah. I was in plays when I was 5. Cher was singing at 15. Celine Dion, the same, like all the popular names. And that seems to be common. I don't think it's the exception. I don't think it's the rule. I just think it's common.
And it could also just be ad hoc. Could just be revisionist history. Them looking back at different points in their life and saying that was it. But I think the rest of us, especially those of us listening right now, are all in stages of transition. Whether they're students moving from one maybe from high school to post-secondary to their master's or dream jobs, or young professionals now becoming managers. I think everyone listening to this and watching this on YouTube is thinking, okay, so I need to envision a few years out, not 30 years, not 50 years. I just need to see a year, maybe 5 years out. What would be your advice to somebody that is afraid of dreaming a little bit bigger? What would you tell them?
Well, something that works for me is this. And this doesn't work for everybody, but it works for me. I find someone else who's done what I want to do.
There you go.
And I go, if they can do it, I can do it. And it doesn't need to be anybody rich. It doesn't need to be anybody famous. It can be simple. It's something like, if they can get a working visa, I'm going to try to get one, because I didn't even know it was possible.
Yeah.
And I think it's about allowing yourself to see the possibility. One of the things I've found in my years, coaching and mentoring clients, most of that I did 20 years ago. I'm starting to do a bit of it again. But what I notice is people put boxes around themselves that aren't real. I do that to myself. That's why I work with a coach, because I need to constantly burst out of my own box. We create our own limitations based upon our lived experience. And I think when people are looking at creating those transitions, look for other examples that are in your realm, in your sphere.
Right.
Don't look at people who live on, in other countries or this. I mean, depending what type of work it is, that might be appropriate. But if you look, like for me with my speaking career, I look at, if that person did it, maybe I can try that.
Right.
Because I've seen it done. I didn't even know it was possible. So I always say, look for examples. The other trick, I think, is to really pay attention to what juices you up and fires you up. And, I talk about that with speaking sometimes, is that oftentimes people will, before they get on stage, think, I'm having anxiety when we get on stage. What we know is the physical feeling of anxiety is the same as the physical feeling for excitement.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And what's the difference is it's your interpretation of that response.
Huh.
So it's like whether you win the lottery or lose your job, your body still goes through the same physical response.
Right.
Your heart rate goes up, your adrenaline increases, your kidneys start to release glucose.
Yeah, you get nauseous and
or whatever the intensity of it is. But you start to get that cortisol flooding your brain, and then you get pulled into your limbic system, and we start to go off and to become in protect and preserve mode.
That's a really good description of what it feels like right before I hit the stage.
Yeah, and someone told me many years ago, switch that switch to excitement, not anxiety. And that has really helped. Now, the second corollary, though, to that is it's about knowing, when you're going down a path, paying attention to, I often call it the metrics of ease.
The metrics of
what
ease.
What is easy here? And I do believe when you hit roadblocks, you should try to go through them. I'm not saying
the path of least resistance, though, I think is what you're looking for.
And sometimes you do have to go through that. But if you hit your head 3 times against the wall, maybe it's not the right wall.
No.
And in my own journey, I've had to really pay attention to what feels right. And I don't mean feel in a voodoo woo-woo way.
Yeah.
I mean paying attention to your inner ding, to your gut. And when you're going down the path, is this making me feel open, or is this making me feel closed? Is this making me feel yucky? Because sometimes if it's making you feel anxious, it might be a good anxious that you want to step through. Or is this really fear that I'm going to kill myself jumping off a mountain? Because there's 2 types of fear. It's like procrastination. There's 2 types of it.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more, Greg. I think there came a certain point in my life where I crossed the threshold where simply writing things down and planning them out to a meticulous degree wasn't going to cut it anymore. I had to start introducing into my life what you just described, which is that sensory experience of just, does it feel right? Does it feel right in the gut? Does it feel right in my head? Am I emotionally drawn to it? Does that thing have valence that I want? And, you described earlier the process of looking to other people and seeing people who have done things and, saying to yourself, that feels right. I feel like I can do that too. I feel like that with you specifically. I think there's 2 speakers in my life right now. There's yourself and there's Eileen McDarr, who I hope to bring on the podcast, who I think have a certain something on stage that I'm missing. And what it is for you and Eileen specifically, there's a lot of things that I model after how it is that you present yourself and carry yourself on stage. But the one thing that you do really well, Greg, you do a lot of things really well, but one thing that I particularly enjoy watching from the clips that I have seen and from the times that I have spoken to you is you're animated, you're genuine, and you're funny. And when people see me speak, the way they would describe me is the total opposite. It's like very rehearsed, almost over-rehearsed, canned, and the jokes seem to be very planned and stale. But my friends know me, especially the ones that are listening to this podcast, Jawad and everyone else, they know that I'm naturally, spontaneously funny. But that doesn't translate well to stage. And so what I'm trying to do now is take your model and trying to replicate that time and time again. But I'm glad that you brought this up, because that's fantastic advice for all the listeners who are confused about what their next steps are. Just look to somebody within your immediate space, somebody, as you said, within your realm, see what they're doing and copy them, emulate them.
Well, and I think it is about copying, and yet I do think it's about, and I see this speaking, and I think it's for it, whether you're an accountant or a leader, it doesn't matter, or a student or doing your master's, that it's about taking whatever that person has, but making it authentically yours. So it's not about how Hamza gets up on stage and moves around. It's noticing someone that does that and goes, how can I do something similar that suits me?
Exactly.
And I think that's the same with goal setting, dream setting, setting your intentions, all that sort of stuff, is what is authentic for you and what is going to be your big piece that's going to contribute to that. Because it's funny you mentioned that example with this speaker business coach I've been working with. You know, it was funny. I pulled all these clips together for my latest demo reel, and she was just brutal. She's like, "You need to learn how to do some humor." And I'm like,
"What are you talking about?"
I know, I'm like, "Hello, I'm
basically a stand-up comedian."
Yeah, like my stuff is known as funny, and like everybody writes funny and practical. Like my brand is all about funny practical techniques. I mean, that's my language. Nobody really says it. They all come up to me and say, "That was really funny. That was really, I love the techniques for this. It was so easy." And it was a bit of sort of jolt in the head that I was doing all of these, clips. And this is just a great example of following other people and not doing your own authentic stuff. I put all these other clips up there because I thought everybody wanted to see me teach, which I am a good teacher. Yet that's not what people hire for, right? They want to see how you engage the audience, how you be with people in my profession and yours. That's what they want to see. So I had to go back and, pull out stuff like that. And they're not even the best clips because I don't even have that many good clips of that. So I have to videotape a bunch.
Yeah.
But that's that, for our listeners, it's the same principle. It's that we can get to the belief that, I have to write a corporate thing that looks like this. And in your business, you might have to. But if you're an entrepreneur, it's a completely different story. You need in your website copy, and I'm still learning this. I coach people on it, and I'm still learning it. To be 100% authentic in who you are so people see your personality come out in your writing, in your copy, in your video, in your podcasts.
Absolutely.
And it has been hard for me to do that, and it's easy for me to tell you to do that.
Well, I mean, what you're describing right now is a change in doing. Like, it's a change in behavior that you have to undergo. You have to actually change some of the ways that you've been doing things, and change is stressful. Get out of that box, right? Yeah. I did a keynote recently to Capital One. It was to their people leaders, and I looked them all in the face and I said, hey, change is inevitable because that's what the company is going through right now, but so is stress as a result of that change. And you could see the color just flush from people's faces. You could just see people being like, I don't want to be stressed. Why do I have to be stressed? Well, if you want to change, you're going to have to endure some level of stress. But
there's good stress and bad stress.
There's good stress and bad stress, but I think it's also deeper than that. Like, why do you think people are afraid to change? Because I have a keynote coming up on Friday. I'm going to try to practice the Gregg Brown signature style of humor.
Gosh.
And I'm shaking just talking about it. I'm going to be myself for sure, but I'm going to try to be the self that my friends and my family have really come to enjoy, which is
that authentic self.
That authentic self.
Gail Larson talks about in transformational speaking.
Right, exactly that. But that other part of my brain is saying, no, the formula works, Hamza. Don't change the formula. The formula got you here. Why are people and why are individuals so hesitant to change? Why is that our natural state?
So I think there's two pieces to that question. I think one is it's an evolution. So when I started speaking, I had a very formula structured thing, and I still have some of that, but it's much more authentic now in how I talk and what I do. And you're probably dealing with that evolution in your own work. And we all evolve, right? Yeah. So that's the other thing. And I think the challenge for all of us and our listeners is take the pressure off. It's evolution. Stuff's going to change. That's that. So first off, just be at peace that it's going to happen. Like, that's sort of the first part. It's like we're always striving to be better than something that we are. When, one of the things that, I could tell anyone listening is just sit down for, a minute today and just say to yourself, I am enough. I'm enough. Just the way I am. I'm enough. I'm perfect just the way I am right now. If nothing ever happened after this, I'd still be I'm enough.
Gregg, all the marketers listening to this right now are like, no,
I know.
People can't believe that they're enough. Otherwise, how are we going to sell them Hallmark cards? And how are we going to get them to download our courses?
Well, that's everything, right? If we believed to have enough, we wouldn't shop, we wouldn't do this, we didn't do that. But I'm talking more about, not about purchasing power and things. I'm talking about that striving that we all have to be different, to be better, to be kinder, to be more authentic, to be nicer, to sell more, whatever our stuff is. Sometimes it's just about being enough and just being in that space, take the pressure off. And if you do that, it's much easier to access that change because you're in a much calmer state of mind to do it. I don't mean calm meditation. I mean very much you're able to be present.
Yes. Be clear, be focused, be able to respond to what's happening around you in an authentic, meaningful way.
Absolutely. And it comes down to really two things with change. And, I speak about this a lot in my videos and on stage is, there's really only two avenues when you encounter change. One, you can be open to new ideas and new information, or two, you can be closed.
Right.
That's really, there's only two options.
Yeah, it's binary.
Where people get confused is with the opening option. When you open to change, it doesn't mean you need to jump in at 100%.
Yeah.
It means you can jump in at 5%. Or 10%. So if you just have that opening, so you might be closed initially, but if you just open, maybe it just means researching something a little bit before you agree to it. That's 5% openness as far as I'm concerned. Maybe it's just talking to someone about what the impact might be. Right. There's another way to create some openness. Because what we tend to do, especially with people I've worked with who've gone job hunting, they'll be open to the change, then they apply for the job, or even before they've applied for the job, they're going, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get it. What should I do? I don't know if I'll do in the interview. What happens if I have to move and with this and blah, blah, blah,
That's
blah,
flight,
blah.
yeah.
I'm like, you haven't even submitted the application and you're talking yourself out of it.
Yeah.
And it's really about that, open and closing to change. And the second part of that is, and it is because of the sales and marketers, I believe that we have this in change theory. So just anybody sales and marketing, I'm not blaming you because you need it in your business.
I'll be the first to take it, man.
But we don't need it in the change business at this point. For some reason, and we're in this sort of culture at work that if we tell people the benefits of the change, that we think they're going to get on board.
Yeah.
Like, tell the benefits of it. They'll buy it. Tell the benefits of it. They'll go into this.
Your productivity will increase 2 times.
I think it's a bunch of horse shit, if I can say horse shit on this.
Go for it, man.
I think that's a bunch of hogwash. What I believe is this, and I take a very firm stance on this. Yes, there are some benefits to some people. When you're in an organization, there might not be benefits to everybody. There might actually be impacts on people that aren't positive. And by spinning the benefits of how great this is not going to get anybody on board with your change. Nobody. It's actually going to alienate them. So, two pieces to think about with this is, instead of asking what are the benefits or what's in it for me, you hear that WII-FM radio station, what's in it for me? Ask what's the impact.
What's the impact? Great.
And always ask what's the impact. It's better than just benefits. It's like if you're buying a condo, the benefits are great, but what's the impact? You have larger mortgage payments, can you do it? And asking what's the impact, which includes what's positive about this, but also what are the impacts going to be on people?
Yeah.
Negative. And sometimes we hear, leaders don't want to talk about negative stuff. I'm like, well, their head's in the sand then, because it's going to come out.
Right.
So, open it up, create a space for us to have the conversation.
Sure. Consider the upside, downside, regular side.
And it doesn't mean we have to solve it.
No.
Just listening to people can move them down the path of change. And we forget that. We think we have to problem solve everybody's things because we're all good problem solvers.
Absolutely. I think you like this. So Dr. Kelly McGonigal, whose book I reference quite extensively, whether it's in my own book or in speaking, she wrote The Upside of Stress. She talks about there being 2 types of stress, which is what you alluded to earlier. She says there's good stress, which is the stress that's plentiful, that brings you closer to your goal, that is a precursor to the thing that you love. Eventually that will bring fulfillment to your life. And then there's bad stress. That's the stress that most people have come to know, which is, all stress is bad stress, but it's not true. Eustress, EUSTRESS is the good stress, and de-stress is the bad stress.
And I think the thing is that whenever we're learning something, and like whether it was me with those kids on the chalkboard, or teaching canoeing at camp, or working with inmates, or at Starbucks, or in healthcare, or my own business now, whenever you're taking people from A to B, there's going to be tension.
You're right.
There's going to be stress because you're going to somewhere new that you haven't been before. Even going through this podcast, we're going from A to B. There's not going to be, tension and stress, but we just want to make sure we're doing things accurately. We make sure there's structure around us. We make sure all that sort of stuff happens so that we have no stress.
Right.
And yet the pressure's still on to make sure we do a good job. But that's the real world.
Absolutely.
And that's just another little podcast from A to B. So think about an organization that wants to grow sales by 20%, or a new entrepreneur who's starting their business and scale. Stress. Some of it's good. It's about how you manage that.
What does stress look like at the inmate level? So you've worked quite a bit in the prison system.
Yeah.
We've worked with inmates.
Yeah, I love that.
What are some of the stressors that exist with that particular community? Because I imagine that's a world that many listeners, including myself, are not very familiar with, if at all.
Well, I loved working with inmates. It's a cool. Do I have time for a little story
Absolutely,
how I got there?
Please.
So, for anyone listening, it's often those moments in your life when you're really paying attention that those doors open, and you have to be open enough to get your head out of the way and just follow it. Because what happens is sometimes our heart says, go do something, and our head talks us out of it.
Yeah.
This was one of those things. So I was reading an article in a newspaper. This was back in the 90s. Article in the newspaper, someone was writing about that inmates in Canada didn't have access to healthcare for whatever reason.
Wow.
And I was this little, white bread suburban boy, didn't know anybody who'd been in prison that I know of, had never been in prison. I think I was arrested when I was 10 for shoplifting a piece of gum or something.
Oh my goodness.
That's my closest interaction with the cops, right? Like, you took that gum, go put it back.
I stole a pack of Yu-Gi-Oh cards back in the day too.
Yeah. But I was, so I've always had a good relationship with that. But so I read this article about inmates being denied access to healthcare, and something triggered in me, and I don't know what it was. It was a sense of social justice. I did not have that label for it, but I was this naive little white bread kid going, you can't be denied access to healthcare in Canada. It's Canada.
Yeah.
And I wrote the person who wrote the news, or who wrote the article, and I said, I need to get involved. And I just started volunteering initially to go into the prisons and work with the inmates and, talk about different, not just health concerns they had, but different ways that they could interact better in the population to make it safer for everyone.
Right.
Most of the people I worked with weren't ever going to get out of jail. And, I'm not a bleeding heart. I believe if you're healthy enough to do the crime, you're healthy enough to do the time. And I'm all behind that. Lock them up. Yet a lot of people do get out of jail, and because they don't do crimes that require them to be in jail their whole life. And the biggest thing is about helping them make that transition, and they're in jail for a reason.
Right.
A lot of the people I worked with, the stories I could tell you from their families, and shooting their kids up with heroin at the age of 8. So of course you're going to get a drug addict as a kid. Yeah. And of course you get sucked into that environment.
Sure. Systemic. Many.
Yeah. A lot of it's systemic. Yeah. A lot of it's systemic, and that's nothing against anything that happened to any of the victims. Right. But it's a systemic problem, and the challenges they really faced were the basic skills that all of us have on the outside, who are, I'm going to use the term relatively sane and healthy. Right. Depending on your environment, a lot of the folks in jail don't have that. No. So simple things like compassion, because we know that if you have compassion for things, you're less likely to hurt them. So a lot of them didn't even have that skill of compassion or empathy.
Kind of born to lose almost, right?
Yeah. And a lot of that comes from their conditioning, where they were brought up, and all that sort of stuff. And I mean, I grew up in a poor home. But my mom always fought to put me in better schools. And I phoned her that day after I went to jail, and I said, thank you for doing that. Because it's all about that circle, who you hang out with, who your friends are, who your family is. And it's tough. Right. Because when you get out of jail, who do you go back to? Your friends and family. So it's not an easy, challenge.
Transition, yeah.
My biggest contribution, I think, with my work in jail, I didn't work full-time, just part-time. My biggest contribution, which I believe it was, and certainly what people told, was when you were treating people as individuals instead of a number, they would treat you back with that same compassion and empathy. So, but just by shaking their hand, and they might not get their hand shaken, and treating them like I would treat you. Yeah. To me, it seems rather pedantic. Right. Or even patriarchal. Sure, yeah. But in that environment, they really respect that. I never felt unsafe, I can tell you that, in all the years.
That's awesome, Greg. I mean, that's incredible that you did that. And, right before we got on air, we were talking about, being an expert first and then a speaker after that. And, all of your audiences are so grateful to have had, decades of experience, such rich experience doing real work that begets, the topics that you talk about today on stage. I want to take a slight detour over here at this point of the podcast and go into a little bit of a funny segment over here called the Halo Skull segment. And what we do is we've started now diving into your Instagram, going all the way to the beginning and just trying to find a a somewhat embarrassing picture that requires a bit of explanation.
Oh,
but it's a totally
no.
optional part of the podcast, so you
I
can
have
decline
to
it.
find one, or you have
Oh, we
one?
found it
Oh
for
my
you. We
gosh.
found 2 of them for you.
Oh, jeez. Okay, sure. Let's look.
You want to do this? All
Yeah,
right.
let's look.
Well, Greg, we're just going to call this Explain
This is
That
my work
Gram.
Instagram, right? Not my personal.
This is your work Instagram. I
Okay,
wouldn't do
good.
your personal Instagram.
Thank you. It's blocked, I think.
Okay, let's
Privacy settings set
let's
pretty
fire
high.
this up. So what we have over here, Greg,
Oh no!
is this is a picture of Greg from 23 years ago.
Oh,
I'm just gonna fire that up right there.
Am
for
I
the
on a
camera
camel?
over there. I think you might be on a camel. You're looking like Billy Zane from Phantom 2040.
I am in Egypt.
You're in Egypt.
That was 1985.
You're looking good, man.
It was
Look
cool.
at that.
That was at the.
Please explain what's happening.
Yeah,
here?
that was down in Luxor at the Valley of. That wasn't the Valley of the Kings. It was the Temple of Karnak or Temple of Luxor. That was Temple of Luxor.
Yes, Temple of Luxor. Yeah.
Yeah, down in Karnak or down in Luxor.
Right on.
And it was a very cool trip. Very, very cool trip.
Cool or cold? Sorry.
Cool. It's
Cool.
a
Okay.
Very, yeah, like.
It's like this is Egypt, right?
Yeah, like I loved mummies since I was a kid.
Yeah,
and King Tut and all that stuff, and to go and explore Egypt, which this was before terrorism and all this sort of
Sure,
stuff. So
yeah,
I
before the civil
backpacked
unrest
through
and, yeah.
Egypt by myself.
No way.
Yeah.
What was the most surreal moment for you over there, walking through? They were probably building, but there's probably stones there that are older than most cities.
So the 2 surreal things were this. We've all seen King Tut's tomb on TV.
Sure, yeah.
Pictures.
National Geographic.
Yeah. And the coolest thing was King Ramses' tomb. So King Tut's tomb is about the size of this room. It's really small.
Really?
King Ramses' tomb, the 3rd, I think it was. 6 underground city blocks.
What?
Huge ceilings. Blue azure with white stars that were original.
That's that.
Colored. Like the reds and the yellows and just you really saw the magnificence. And
How did Ramses end up with like the 4 seasons of?
because King Tut wasn't an influential ruler at
yeah.
all. He was a boy king that was only ruling for a year or 2.
They just put him in the little motel there.
He was nobody. He was a nobody. Whereas Ramses III was a huge king and pharaoh.
So interesting.
And so that was cool. And then, of course, being in the big pyramid of Khafre or Cheops, I can't remember which one it was, but being inside, going up the little hunching like this, where 4,000 years ago they'd been carrying in bodies and people and things, was literally probably one of the coolest experiences of my life.
I can't wait to go. I mean, I'm going to.
You must, but go on a tour. That's what I would tell people today.
Not self-guided the way.
No, it's very. I swore I would never go back.
Right.
But I would. But I have money now that I could go back in a better way, and I would. It's just too. It's hard if you don't know Arabic. It's hard. It's hard if you don't know Arabic. That's it.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Greg. We'll just pause it for 1 second. I'm going to ask her to stop that. That's really annoying. So we'll just do a nice, simple cut over here. How are you doing so far?
Good. Can I go?
You're rocking.
Thank
Do
you.
rock.
Am I staying on topic?
Oh yeah, you're great. You're
Am I good?
You're really good.
Okay, good.
It's always so good when there's stories.
Okay.
Yeah, just right there to the right.
Oh, is it disrupting you?
Oh yeah, it is. Sorry. We're just in your room.
Mind if I just squeeze through here? Yeah, of course, yeah. Can you grab some money? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. If you could just we're right in here.
Maybe I don't know if they're still building the studio, so we can get some soundproofing. Okay. Sorry? They're still building the studio? Yeah. Get some soundproofing.
Like the videographer too, we were planning that. We said we want to get some LED strips around here, get a bunch of panels.
Yeah, because you can hear like the HVAC too a little bit, but it's not that bad.
Yeah.
You can't hear it, eh?
Right? You can, but I can hear in the headphones. But you can't hear when it's recorded.
Yeah. But I'm sure you also work your magic in post, right?
You get that high pitched noise too, right? In the video.
Yeah.
Or yeah. So
Not.
I usually just roll off at the high end of
Yeah.
the EQs.
It's good so far, man. Yeah, we're in the tail end of this too, man.
So how's the podcast going? Like, what's your topic on today?
It's a good question, man. We're covering quite a bit of it, man. Like we're talking mostly about like change leadership, change management. getting to know Gregg, his story, but eventually we're all going to bring it back to productivity.
Oh, that's
That's what we talk about, man. How do you get involved with now, Shep? Is that short for Shepherd?
Yeah, Shepherd. My real name is Daniel, but his name is Daniel. So.
Just rocking with Shepherd.
Yeah.
I like it.
So I started. I'm in high school, right? So I started studying business on my own like a year ago.
Oh, sweet, man.
And then I started my own thing. It's I own a creative agency that provides everything artists needs for their music.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's time, videography.
Good for you.
Thank you. And then when I got into these guys, I'm like, he actually presented at my school.
Daniel,
yeah. So I remember that. And I'm like, how about I do co-op? I wonder if I do that. So I messaged him. He's like, yeah, meet me at 5:30 Monday. And then just like that. So
here you go. Congratulations.
Anyways, I won't cut too much into you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for my fun little Zen garden.
Oh my goodness. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it. So sorry. I'm just learning all of these new things.
We're all good.
I know it's lit open.
I couldn't work in a co-working space. It'd be too loud and noisy.
I know, and especially.
I mean, you guys have your own office, so that's fine.
Right. Usually the way that we recorded it was at Ryerson. And so Ryerson was soundproof
Well, they
and
have a real
everything.
studio
It was a
there.
real studio.
Yeah.
And so I kind of miss it because, this is the second day. I had no idea the cleaners would be here, but it's all good. I think she's done now. She said this was the last room she had to do. So
Great.
how are you doing? You good?
I'm fine.
Awesome.
Keep
You're on
going.
fire. Okay.
Am I?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I hope I'm on topic.
No, you're there. It's so interesting that you can tell when somebody's really good at doing this.
But
like
you're a
what they do
good
for living.
interviewer. You've researched and you got your notes.
I try. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to not ask why questions because the why questions
it's
tend to
so
beget the boring. Yeah, I ask like what and how, and so
Yeah.
let's go into some productivity talk
Okay.
then.
Let me,
Yeah, no problem. Just check that wherever. Awesome.
Just
Oh, ready to go? Just clap. Okay.
Just for the video, just so I know.
Perfect. All right, Gregg, that brings us to the performance point segment of the podcast where we unravel your productivity systems. We talk about how it is that you manage and optimize your time, your energy, and your attention. I'm very excited to hear your answers because I imagine
I hope I do all that.
Oh, you do that very well. I mean, and your career is a testament to that, that you've achieved an altitude, you've achieved a level of success that I'm very proud of, very excited for you, but also, as an aspiring elite speaker, I would like to emulate. So here I go with a couple of selfish questions that I hope will also provide a lot of value to the Ideas into Action community. So the first one is, how do you turn your downtime into uptime? And let's talk specifically about the fact that you're on the road all the time.
Right.
And on the road meaning you're up in the air, you're actually on the road, you're traveling for your work. That's a lot of time that could easily just be turned into just drinking on a flight and watching, I don't know, The Mummy Returns. I don't know why I picked that movie, but yeah.
That's okay, and that's what I do actually when I'm on
You just
a flight.
totally relax on a flight?
It depends. So I take my flights as those luxury moments where I'm disconnected.
Huh.
And I like to watch a movie, and I get in trouble at home all the time because I've seen all the movies. So I actually do look at it as downtime. If I'm a long flight, I usually try to book some creative stuff into my time. So at certain times of day, I really like to edit and write and do that sort of stuff, but I have 1 hour bursts of that. Mm-hmm. So I try to schedule that sort of stuff if I'm going to be on a flight and I don't have the time and or if I've been really busy. It just really depends what my energy is going to be like for that flight.
That's really interesting. I did not expect that. Bailey and I are always the types to, we rack up those Boingo credits. And what's the other Wi-Fi provider? It's not coming to me, but
I want to relax.
Way to go.
I want to relax. One of the things I believe and has been, I guess, a mantra of mine for, maybe it's not a mantra, maybe I'm just plain lazy, but I really think downtime's important to clear your mind. My brain works a lot, like everybody's brains. Sometimes mine has a hard time shutting off. Mm-hmm. And so when I get in that moment to just go, I take advantage of it. Because this as a speaker. If I'm doing a keynote the next day, sometimes I'm going over the words in my head the night before. Should I use this word or that word? Should I use this word or that word? What about that word there? Is this more impactful? And when you run your own business, it's 24/7. It's like when you're doing a master's degree, it's 24/7. It does not stop. And, you know, I find anything that can help me shut my brain off, I actually use it because I recharge.
Yeah.
So that when I get off the plane, I'm actually fully engaged, fully prepared, ready to step down, ready to step up. I can go to my hotel, prepare everything there, go in and bam, deliver.
That's it. Fresh and clear and just on.
Because I think the trick with everybody is to know when your productivity times are and how your brain energy works. And my energy is very cyclical and it's in bursts. I'm not one of those people who could be a scientist and stare at a molecule under a microscope for 8 hours. Like, it would just drive me bonkers.
Right.
And that's probably why I'm an entrepreneur, is that I like to multitask. I like to have a lot of things on the go. And it's about knowing when that is good for you. So I know, mornings are usually a really good time for me for writing, for doing any administrivia that I hate doing. I can do hour bursts of it and get on. Afternoons, I like to have more meetings and discussions, that sort of thing. And I'm lucky that I can structure my time like that.
If you're given an option by a conference organizer to speak at any point in the day, what would you choose? What would be the sweet spot? When are you the most on?
You know, it really depends. So I love doing openings to kick people off.
Yeah.
But part of me loves doing closings because you get to wrap it all up and send people on their way.
Interesting.
So it really depends upon the vibe of the conference. One thing I will not do, and I've been counseled against this, and I agree with it 100%, is I will never do a keynote while people are eating lunch.
Oh, God.
I will do a keynote after they eat lunch, but I will not do it while they are eating lunch.
It's the worst, isn't it? The
Yes.
clinking and the clanking and people chewing.
No. You'd have to pay me a lot of money to do that. But then I'd look stupid. So
It's like you're just speaking to a wall at that point. No one's actually into what you're saying. I mean, even if they're pretending that they are, or even if they are, it looks like they're pretending.
the coffee and dessert has to be served.
Yes, absolutely. That's super interesting. What about when you're like cooking, for instance, or running in the morning?
I hate cooking. I hate running.
I love cooking. I hate running. I'm with you on that. But running, for instance, that I consider that to be downtime. It's a necessary thing that I have to do. I need to do more of it, but I can't just run. I have to have something on. I have to listen to a podcast.
Oh, okay.
I have to listen to an audiobook. Do you ever try to sort of multitask and you pair like a big mindless sort of thing with another thing?
No.
Always monofocus, just one thing at a time.
You know, I work out. Like, I go to the gym a lot, and I like to listen to music when I'm at the gym. I can't listen to music when I work. I have to be completely focused. I find if I'm writing or reading or practicing speaking, I have to give it 100% focus. Like, when I'm doing a walkthrough of a speech, knowing that it'll change on the fly anyway, but I still have to do a walkthrough. I have to be focused. And because I'm one of those people who can be very scattered.
Right.
Squirrel.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go there.
You got to zone in and lock in.
It was just like on the break, I'm like, am I in focus?
Yeah,
on focus or whatever I said, because
you're great.
That's my sort of, I think very circularly, not linearly.
Absolutely. One of the best investments that I made recently was a pair of noise canceling headphones. I got the Bose Q35s.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Just the ability to zone in on a task and not have the auditory distractions was absolutely fascinating. Started sleeping with earplugs now,
I do.
which is a weird thing as well. And I've learned that not many people do that. You need to try. The quality of your sleep will significantly improve.
It will.
Speaking of sleep,
Yes,
what does relaxation look like for Gregg Brown? Because you are on and you're doing this high energy, flaming out on stage, and then what happens in the come down period?
So I get energy from working with people. So I'm not one of those people. If any of you know any of the Myers-Briggs or any of the
what's your MBTI score?
The ENFP. Or ENFJ. My J and P are pretty similar. So what that means is, that's what's important to this conversation is, and you can do this, any sort of assessment that measures how you get your energy. And that's what that extroversion means. I get my energy from groups and people, and it doesn't deplete me. So, I know many friends that are speakers that are raging introverts. But they dial it up to get on stage. I have to dial it up to get on stage too, but when I'm on stage, I have to moderate.
No way.
Yeah, like I have to bring it down. Otherwise I can talk too fast, I can go all over the map, I can, and I have to sort of vary my pitch, modify my tone, slow it down a bit, which this feels really slow to me. So it's a bit of moderation. Yet when I go to a party, as an example, If I don't know a lot of people, I'm like standing against the wall wanting to leave.
Right.
So it's not, you know, I get a lot of energy from people, but it
right.
also comes a point where I'm like, okay, I'm done, and I just want to go to the lake and chill out.
And is the lake right now, like, it seems to be your calm spot? That's the place where you feel some,
or
quite
my
a bit of tranquility.
At home,
bedroom at home,
at
right.
home, and the lake, yeah.
Do you structure your downtime? Do you like schedule your downtime into your calendar?
Yes. I schedule my gym into the calendar. I'm a list maker.
Yeah.
And a list maker by necessity, because if I didn't have lists, I wouldn't get anything done. It was a learned behavior, not a natural one. And it's ingrained in me now. So I love lists. I build my list into my calendar.
Okay.
It was one of the best productivity tips someone told me years ago in Outlook was in your calendar, don't use the list function in Outlook. Put it right into the time on your calendar. Because when else are you going to do it if it's not in the time in your calendar?
Can you give an example of what a list would look like in your calendar?
Absolutely. So, for example, I open up in Outlook from, say, what's tomorrow morning? I say
Tuesday,
9 till 10 o'clock. And I'll open up, and my meeting, the booking will look like, call Hamza to find out about this. See Jane about that. Send email to that. Fill out Excel spreadsheet. Do that. Can I do all that in an hour? Okay, no, then I might need to extend half an hour. Bam. And so then I extend that for half an hour. In the afternoon, you know, I might blank the time, you know, follow up with Billy Bob around this. Check out with that. So I end up with a full day of calendar, but it's not packed with meetings. Because guess what? I have to get work done. And so work meetings are work, but it's being able to have that flexibility.
Oh my goodness, this seems like the most simple revelation, but I think you just answered the question I've been toying with for years now, which is, what does the ultimate productivity system look like?
It's simple, easy, and when else? Like, a list is great, but when are you going to do the list?
And now I'm realizing, as you're saying this, wow, I'm having an epiphany right here. I have 2 to-do lists. I've got my calendar and I've got Asana, and they're both trying to be the same thing. So my to-do list is a bunch of things I need to do with when I need to get them done.
Right.
And my calendar is a bunch of places I need to be and times I need to block out, but it's missing that.
How are you going to do that
component.
stuff from Asana if it's not in your calendar? Because you're not going to have any time left.
This is why most people feel like they need to work evenings and weekends, because they're not actually being productive. They're scattered and working on a whole bunch of things.
Exactly. So I've been fortunate to have work and jobs and life that I've been able to have control over my calendar. And I realize a lot of people listening probably don't.
Took some time to get here, right?
Yeah. And you know, you can work for companies that have that too sometimes. Whereas, you know, I've seen people block chunks of time for administrivia now, and even seen executives starting to do that, where they're booking time in their calendar. I'm like, how many years did that take you?
Right.
Because if you're in meetings from 9 till 5, and I don't see how productive you can be in meetings from 9 to 5, truthfully, I don't care how productive your meetings are, you still have work to do. And if you have to be in that many meetings, just having a meeting isn't a reason to have a meeting.
Yeah.
You know, there's ways to get things done that don't involve meetings. And I just book it right into your calendar. So if it's like, buy a birthday card
Put it in your
Friday,
calendar.
it's in my calendar. So I'm going to do it at Friday at 4 o'clock when I go to the gym.
I think there's been a natural evolution in my own calendar, where my calendar is starting to resemble that. But I've still got this ever-growing to-do list in Asana right now. That's just filled with like micro tasks, if you will.
What would be an example of that?
An example of a micro task would be like, buy Gregg's speaker's gift.
So when would you do that if it's not in your calendar?
Right? And so it's in my to-do list, and my to-do list said do it last week. So I got the gift last week. But it was like one of these like 5-minute tasks that I didn't feel like I needed to create a calendar item for, but I should have done that.
Yeah, which is pop it into like a chunk of time. Like, let's say, for example, if you know you have to get this little gift,
Right.
I look at my calendar during the week. I'm like, oh, it looks like Thursday I've got a block of time. Maybe I'll go to the gym and do the calendar thing right after and throw all that stuff in there now.
It's interesting.
And then, I mean, you can move it.
Right.
But the trick is it just has to be moved to another day then, or it doesn't get on the list.
Well, this is the next step, because what I have in my calendar right now is I have these massive gray chunks called work, but they're nebulous. They just say work. And within that work nebulous calendar invitation, I'm just doing all the things in my to-do list. But the next step, the next logical progression is to do exactly what you're doing. Fuck, Greg, I'm so happy we had this conversation, because you've this is it. This is the thing I need to work towards.
And it was a default for me because I'm lazy and I don't understand technology.
Yeah.
And I don't want, it comes back to what I believe. If you make it too complicated for people, they will not do it.
Right.
And I know for me, if you tell me to fill out this form that looks like this, that looks like that, and click 3 buttons here and click there, unless it's something I really, really want, or a video I really want to see, I'm done in 20 seconds and on to something
Then you're
else.
onto something else.
Yeah. And it's just a default to that is that, I don't want, most people don't use all the bells and whistles in their technology. I don't even use, someone said, oh, you can use voice dictation to send yourself stuff. I'm like, I send myself emails.
Yeah, all
And
the time.
I send
Just
myself
texts all the
emails.
time,
I text myself or I voice text my emails when I'm driving to myself. So then I get home and I see all these emails and I transfer those emails to a place on the calendar. So the work goes into the calendar.
It becomes something that you have to do within the 168 hours afforded to you every single week.
Yeah. Or I put in stuff like say I have a client list to follow up with. I put a block of time in the calendar and I'll say C file folder for client list to follow up with in this time. Like I'm not going to list all my clients in the but I refer to the folder where the work is.
Right on. And Greg,
simple.
I love this, and honestly, we could do a whole other episode on just this calendar practice because I'm nerding out hard right now. But let's talk about attention real quick. Not real quick. Let's take your time with this because I want to know, and I think the listeners want to hear about what your process looks like for showing up to a big moment. Whatever that might be, whether the listeners are preparing for a game that they're going to play or they're about to deliver a workshop to their colleagues, whatever that big scary moment is. And for you, that could be speaking, I imagine. How is it that you bring your A+ game to that moment?
Well, you know what? I think it starts the moment you wake up in the morning.
Has to start from the beginning.
I believe it. And so I know people who get up in the morning and say, oh, shit. I do. I've met people who get up and they're like, oh, shit. I think it's a conscious decision to do that. Or it's if you're getting up in the morning and saying, oh, shit, it probably means you need to look at what's going on in your day and what you need to change and what you're not happy about. It sounds small, but our words create our thoughts, which create our feelings, which create our behaviors.
Words creates thoughts.
Yeah. So if you say, oh, shit, you're like, there's a thought that's creating that, but your word's also creating that, right? Like it's sort of a cycle.
And then you act in a way that is commensurate to that thought.
Totally.
Huh.
So you're more putting out there, you're like, oh, shit, I'm going to have a shitty day.
Yeah. Well, guess what? Now you're going to have a shitty day.
It doesn't mean you're not going to have a shitty day, but you're more likely to have one.
Right.
So, so one of the things I learned a number of years ago, I can't remember where I read it, and I used to take sleeping pills to sleep because I had a tough time sleeping.
Wow.
And this got me off sleeping pills, and it sounds silly, but I'll explain it. I started to get up every morning before I even opened my eyes and thanked my bed for a really good sleep. I was like, thank you, bed, for keeping me so warm. And
I love it. Makes sense.
and just cozy tonight and safe. There's so many people who don't have a warm bed like this. I'm just so thankful. Thank you. And that may sound voodoo, airy-fairy, but it really talks about, what that really is about is what we talk about in life, which is what is your relationship to things? So is your relationship to your life that you think it's shitty, or is your relationship to your life, do you think it's good? Is your relationship in your life to your bed, do you think it's a good bed? Or every time you go in bed at night going, God, I don't want to fall asleep. I never can fall asleep in this horrible bed. I'm going to have to take a sleeping pill. And I found that when I thanked my bed in the morning, I was like, hey, bed, I'm looking forward to going to sleep. And I got off sleeping pills like that because I transformed my relationship with things. And that is sort of the precursor for the day. So I think for any big or small experience, you have to set your day up for success. And so for me, I'm not saying everybody has to thank their bed, but be grateful you have a bed if you have one. It's a great way to just, for me, start the day. It got me off sleeping pills, and now I actually when I see my bed, I can't even wait to go to bed. I love sleeping now. I hated it before. So then I think about what are the 3 things or big things that are going to happen that day. And I usually, just see them going well, or I say something like, okay, thank you for all these going well. I see them happening really good. And if they don't, I'll handle them really well. Like just thing like that, just to pre-program the day a bit.
Sure.
And I believe it's really important to pre-program your subconscious mind and your conscious mind to set yourself up for success. Because that's what it is. It's all about your thinking. Right. Your thinking is making or breaking you. So if you get up and go, oh, cripes, this happened, this broke, and I've done it. I've driven to work in a bad mood because I spilled milk in the morning and wrecked everybody's morning for half an hour. I've done it.
Yeah.
So get up in the morning, I thank my bed. I pre-program the day in whatever way works for myself at that moment in the day. Right before I do a big workshop, I've done this for years, and I say this out loud, and I used to say it with people, and they'd all think I was a bit nuts, but I don't really care. It works for me. I'd say, this is going to be a really great workshop. It's going to be a wonderful exchange of information. Everybody's going to get what they need, and everybody's going to walk away pleased. Put it out there just before I go in. Versus, a lot of us think, oh, I wonder if I'm going to say the right thing. I hope people like me. I hope it's going to be really good. Like, think about all those thoughts that go in.
Right.
Take control of it. I'm going to have a really great workshop, wonderful exchange of information. People are going to get what they need. Everyone's going to walk away pleased.
Absolutely.
And I do that going on stage. I still do it going on stage. I say, if I don't do it, I panic and I run to the bathroom.
And then you manifest that on stage.
Most of the time. I mean, sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm great, and sometimes I bomb. And I haven't bombed a lot, but I've had a few. And
the times that you have bombed, can you trace them back to bad preparation during the day? Has that always been the cause?
Well, so this is the
catalyst
thing. No, that's not. It's about how you handle it.
Okay.
So when you prepare your day to have a good day and set yourself up for success doing whatever rituals people want to do, those really work well for me. It doesn't mean bad things aren't going to happen. But what it does mean is you're going to be in the mindset to handle them better.
Yes.
Right? So you're going to be much more open to the change than closed. If you haven't knocked over the milk that morning and broken the glass and done that, you'll be much more open. So that when the bad things do happen, you'll have much more confidence to solve them. You'll probably solve them quicker. You'll handle it better. You won't fly off the tree.
Right.
You know, all that sort of stuff.
So that's so interesting, Greg. It's funny. I'm looking at my notes over here, and the follow-up question I wanted to ask you is, what is the weirdest ritual you have before a talk? But I think thanking your bed in the morning.
Well, and you know what I tell
cake.
people that?
Yeah.
What I tell people about that is, and you could be thinking anything. It's about, you know, whatever object you have, your home, your car, you have a relationship with it because you purchased it.
Yes.
And relationship, I don't mean you're going to love and kiss it and smooch it. That's not what I mean.
It's part of you.
It's
part
a part
of your life.
you.
Yeah.
You bought it for a reason, or you like it for a reason, or
Sure.
you don't like it for a reason.
Has some intrinsic value based
So
on
if
that
you don't
position.
like something, get rid of it.
Yep.
You know,
Marie Kondo.
Yeah. And if you go into, I can tell you, if you go home every day saying, I hate this house, I hate this house, you're going to hate your house.
Yeah.
Duh. You know, if you go into work every day saying, I hate my boss, I hate my boss, and you might have reason to hate your boss. I'm not saying don't hate your boss, but if you hate, I guarantee you're going to hate your boss.
It's death by a thousand cuts.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can pre-program your thinking, and that's not voodoo. It's the way our mind works. It's the way our cognitive brain works. We're one of the only creatures that can create a plan to the future when we have a vision of what the end result looks like. And to have a vision of what that end result looks like requires us to be able to articulate it, to think about it clearly, to say it in a way that makes sense. And that's just like me thanking my bed. I'm thanking my bed because I had a really good sleep in it, and I'm looking forward to another good one tonight. And guess what would happen? I ended up with these great sleeps.
Greg,
Sometimes
it sounds
I
like
thank my car.
I know, and you know what? I'm right there with you. People might think it's what you said, it's voodoo, but no, I do that actively in my life right now. But I think that's the microcosm of organizational change leadership. What you just described right now, that process of setting a goal and then having the right kind of processes and systems in place of getting you there in a way that is befitting to the initial vision that you had set out. Well, that sounds like accomplishment to me.
Well, and it is that. It's the whole concept of relationship is, you know, I can tell people, I mean, if you don't believe me that thanking things changes your relationship with them, go home and start telling your partner to go to hell every day and tell them how much you hate them. See what happens to your relationship.
Yeah.
You know, if you go to work every day, you know, you go into work, I hate my work, well, you're going to have a bad attitude about that. And it's going to come out. And, you know, anytime you have a difficulty with something, and the bed thing's a very fun example because if you look at the thoughts you think about your actions during the day, you'd be surprised what's often going through your head. So do you walk home in your door at night and go, oh shit, I don't want to be home tonight, I have to cook dinner? Well, you're going to be really fun to walk around. I'm not saying be airy fairy Pollyanna pie in the sky, because change isn't roses and lollipops and sunshine and rainbows. It's not. Change is crap sometimes.
Yeah.
But the trick with this is to figure out what you want to have happen and, you know, use a process that works for you to get your energy up. And I don't mean voodoo energy. I mean your physical, electrical energy coursing through your body that you have. How to get that up before you go on stage. How to get that up before you go to a client call. How to get it up when you're sick. How to get it, all that stuff is bringing that energy up.
Focused, consistent application to bring on,
Well, and sometimes you have to do that when you walk in the house at night. If you've been working all day in a crappy job you don't like, you have to bring your energy up when you come home, because you can't just be crappy in a crappy mood all the time, because then you have to change your job.
I love this. And what you said right now, Greg, is the synthesis of you've really taken and built upon, and I think this is episode 19 that we're doing. I could be wrong over here, but you've built on 18 other guests that have come before you who have shared shades and different pieces of what you've talked about. But I think you've just harmonized what I think is the crux of the ideas into action philosophy over here, which is creating habits, creating daily consistent actions, manageable, small
things. Like for the people that laugh about thanking their bed if they're having a difficult time sleeping, try it for 30 days and tell me if that didn't work.
Oh man, I'm doing it tonight. I'm thanking my bed tonight, every other night for the rest of my life.
Thankful we have a bed. There's millions of people on the planet who don't have a bed. So why shouldn't you be grateful you have a nice little bed that curls you up and keeps you warm, and gives you a good sleep, instead of resenting going to bed because you're not going to sleep because of the snoring and the pills and it just do you see it's for me what it is about, and this is with change leadership. And when I say leadership, I don't mean for leaders, because I believe everybody's a leader regardless of their job title, is that what it's really about is finding those practical techniques that work for you, and whatever those are that change your relationship to whatever the issue is.
Right.
If it's a bad, the worst thing you can do, if someone's home's burnt down, for example, and then let's blame sales and marketing for this again.
Oh man.
Sorry, sales and marketing folks listening.
We're the worst.
Let's put the benefits on it. So here's what happens. You're standing there looking at your house burned down. A well-meaning neighbor comes over. At least you still have your health and your kids are safe. And you're like, screw off. I just lost my bloody house. I know I'm safe, but now I lost all my pictures. I have to get a new home. Where am I going to live? I have to go to work tomorrow. And you're angry because they're trying to put a positive spin on a bad situation. And that's what I'm saying. Don't put a positive spin on a bad situation. If something bad happens, like your house burns down, just be with that person. Hey, it sucks your house burned down. And guess what? Doing that will move people down the path of change.
Yeah.
Putting a positive spin on people will not move them down that path.
No.
If it's a negative change, you want to just be, if you acknowledge it, just be with them with that will move them.
Yeah, ride that downswing, kind of sit in the shit for a bit.
Sit in the shit. I love sitting in the shit. That is a great term. I'm going to steal that.
Do so. Well, Greg, this is you've been rocking this. You've been on fire. And speaking of which, we'll bring this to the final segment of the podcast, which is a rapid fire round. These are 10 hand-picked and in some cases remixed questions just for you. The trick, Greg, is you have to answer with whatever comes to mind immediately. Okay. So we're going to ask you these questions. We're not going to give you too much time to think about them. But if you need to, by all means, this is a pretty easygoing, chill podcast. Ready for this, Greg?
Go.
These are 10 questions, a rapid fire round with Gregg Brown. Number 1, what's the one book you've read the most often in your life?
Oh, that would be You Can Create an Exceptional Life by Cheryl Richardson.
If you had to guess how many times you read that book in your life, what would that number be? Are we talking double digits?
50.
50. Oh my goodness. I mean, if that's not an endorsement of the book,
might be
I don't know
where
what
I
it
got
is.
the thanking your bed.
Okay, well that's that. We're gonna put that in the show notes, folks.
Yeah.
Right on.
An exceptional life. And I think that's where I got thanking your bed from, and I got off the sleeping pills because of it. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
Question number 2: What is your biggest pet peeve as a professional speaker?
What is my biggest pet peeve? I would say, I don't know what my biggest pet peeve is. There's so many.
Give us 2 or 3.
You know what? I think my biggest pet peeve is when the audio and technology doesn't work properly when it's been tested a bunch of times. And people, and pet peeves for me always have me a little worried when people say, yeah, no, we got it all under control and everything's good. I'm like, can we just check that again? So a bit of a control freak, and it's not about being a
man.
control freak for me. It's I want everybody there to have the best experience they can. And if they can't see me, hear me, see the video clips, hear the audio, it just brings people down. That's whether I'm teaching canoeing or crafts. Right? It was the same thing. It's like, I want everybody to have a great experience. So what is all the infrastructure we need to put in place to make it happen?
Oh my goodness, I didn't think about that until just now about how much of a deal breaker bad AV can be when it comes to speaking. I once had a confidence monitor that was supposed to show my previous slide, present slide, next slide. So it made sense. Like, this is what happened. This is where I'm at. This is what's coming up. I pressed next and all of them changed to the same slide. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, what am I going to do here?
Well, I've never had that many confidence monitors.
Right?
So yeah, I don't usually have one.
Overconfidence monitor.
I might have one monitor that just has my current slide, not with the future one. So you're lucky you had that.
I've had to learn the hard way, sir.
That is.
Number 3, if you could choose a keynote walkout song, what would it be? So here comes Gregg Brown.
Moves like Jagger. He's got the moves like Jagger. I actually use that as my walk-on song.
Actually?
Yeah, I do use moves like Jagger as a bit of a joke because I tell people that I'm not going to make them move.
How do you get walkout songs for your keynotes? Is this a thing that you could ask?
So so this is what I did.
I've been doing this wrong, man.
I took control years ago. I was doing an opening keynote for a conference. And they were basically playing funeral music before I got on stage. I'm not joking.
The Undertaker
Everybody was
theme.
hungover.
Ding,
They were,
ding,
playing funeral music. I thought, I'm taking control of this. And so what I do is after they do my introduction, I have it built into my slide deck, just a short little sound clip of about 25, 30 seconds. And they do the intro, and then I walk up to it and I can control it myself.
Nice.
I took out Moves Like Jagger last year, but it's one of my favorites. I have one by a Saskatoon band in it right now called Warmmouth Masons, the name of the band, that have a book on change.
Right
it's
on.
called Change But Be Yourself Now. That's the song.
Good
So
for
I
you.
found that.
That's awesome. I did not know that.
But my
was a
real
thing that
one's
you could
Moves
do.
Like Jagger. I love Moves Like Jagger.
Moves Like Jagger.
Well, it gets everybody up. My other big one would be the Bee Gees song "You Should Be Dancing." It's very high energy.
Dancing,
Yeah. I've used those when I've emceed, like as intro and outro music. For
Right,
each
just
segment.
tease you up
'Cause you
and
can
just
bring up the energy. People will stop talking. This is the biggest tip for anybody out there who has to do events. People stop talking as the music increases, so you never need to go, okay, everybody sit down, shut up. You just start the music 3 minutes before you're going to go up. Gradually turn it up until it's really loud and people just sit down.
just shut up.
Yeah.
This is good advice. I have to MC my sister's engagement coming up,
There
so
you go.
now I know what to do.
Moves like Jagger. You should be dancing.
Dancing.
Do Justin Timberlake. It's the feeling.
That's it. You know what? I think I'm going to go for it. I
That's
think
the
I'm going to
best
ask
tip.
this year. I'm going to ask a conference organizer to do some walkout music.
Well, no, but you take control of the music. Don't ask them to do it. They won't do it.
Where do you play it though? Do you have a speaker with you on stage, like
No, but I have audio with my.
on the slides?
Yeah,
That's how you sneak it in there.
yes, you
Shit.
just go insert audio file, just like insert video file.
Greg, you sneaky
audio,
devil.
and it's right on there. And you can control it with your clicker. Yeah, don't ask the conference organizers to. They don't have time to do all that stuff, and they won't know what the music is unless they're a really big conference.
Okay.
But I always tell people after you do my introduction, I'll control the sound. I go through it with the audio, people, AV, make sure it works, and then I can stop it myself when I'm on stage.
This is happening this Friday. If you're at UTSC and you're here for my keynote on Friday, well, by the time this podcast airs, it's going to be long past. But I'm going to debrief it with you.
Yeah, I'd love to debrief it.
I'm going to let you know how my keynote walkout song went.
Yeah, just it's the funeral music in the morning, right? I thought I have to take control of the energy around my engagement.
There you go.
That's what it is.
There you go. Greg, bringing it back to the rapid
Yes,
fire
sorry.
round. No problem. What is the thing you love the most about your partner?
Non-judgmental and willing to listen.
Lovely. Number 5, sorry. What is your favorite TED Talk? Other than mine, of course.
I love your TED Talk.
Thank you.
I don't really have a favorite TED Talk. I really like yours.
Okay, well, thank you. That's the best compliment I could ask for. What movie made you cry the most?
Dark Victory, Betty Davis, 1939, when I was 15.
What kind of cry was it? Like
I
tears
saw
walling down, or
when
just
she
an
died
ugly?
at the end because she had brain cancer.
No.
Ronald Reagan was her husband in the movie. This is 1939, right? And she was a really nice horsewoman. She died of brain cancer, and she's out in the field, and all of a sudden she can't. She's like, is the sun still out? It feels like it's warm, but it's dark now. And she loses her sight and goes up to bed and dies.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it was a good scene.
That's devastating.
Devastating. It was a great scene. If you haven't seen it, 1939, Dark Victory. Betty
Dark
Davis.
Victory.
Yep.
What do you love the most about public speaking?
What do I love? I love that it challenges me, and I love that. I love when I can connect the dots for people. I love seeing the light bulbs come on. I love when people come up to me and say, "I knew that, but I hadn't heard it in that way." Because I don't believe, I'm some enlightened guru up in front of the stage. That's not my model. I believe that, I have some knowledge, they have some knowledge. Let's try to connect it and create those light bulbs. And that's what juices me up with that.
Gotcha. What's a book you've been meaning to finish?
Do I have any in process now? I read business books in chunks. I don't read them from start to finish. I think I have a Clive Cussler international intrigue deep sea water mystery I need to finish on my next plane ride.
There you go.
My books are my plane rides are books.
Book time.
Yeah.
Your book is called Ready, Set, Change Again.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to publish another book, what would you call it?
Well, I'm working on it right now, which is really exciting.
The exclusive. Give it to us.
Well, I'll give you the working title, but it's sort of blah. So the working title is Change Ready Leadership, Strategies to Create Positive Change in Your Work, Life, and Community. So I'm probably going to get rid of the Change Ready Leadership stuff, but I really love, I really realized in my work that it's not about just reacting to change and being resilient and moving through change that is disruptive to us, that it's really about how do we seize opportunities? How do we anticipate change? How do we create that positive change? And not just in our work, but in our life and communities. And most of my work, as you've seen, has blended in life and community work and not-for-profit and, all over the map. So I sort of want to bring that out.
Boom. Last question, Greg. You did this really well. Way to go. You've given us so many great pieces of advice on this podcast, but what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received as Greg?
The best piece of advice I've ever received. I would probably say always trust your gut. I know people always say that, but it's about learning what is your gut reaction and what it is not, right? So it's sort of learning, is this real or is it not? Mm-hmm. Because when and not let your intellectual brain override that. Like you need a marriage of the both.
Right.
And when I have, let my intellect override that and said, I think they're going to be a really good hire because they've got all this, but something's just off. Oh, but we'll make it work. Never works.
Yeah.
And that's just a hiring. I can do that with clients. I could do it with keynotes I'm going to. Like I turned down a big piece of business in April because it was asking me to do something that was just a little out of my comfort zone. And I thought, is this out of my comfort zone because I should stretch and do it? Or is it out of my comfort zone because it's just going to bring me down and make me not feel good? It was like, bring me down, not feel good. So I said no. It was a lot of money, but I just said no, and I had to just suck it up and bite the bullet. But it was the right decision.
There's something to that. And I think when people say trust your gut, what they're really saying is like, trust yourself, because that's wisdom speaking.
Well, it's instinct.
It's instinct, wisdom. Right? It's something ancient almost, right?
Yeah, and it is your, I break it down, most of the things we do in our life, we do to feel good.
Yeah.
Whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's to get paid, whether it's to buy things that makes us feel good.
Right.
And I think if we can figure out how do we want to feel, and does this make me feel good or bad? Or another way I like to think about it is, does this make me feel open or does this make me feel closed?
Right.
That's a big one I use. Like, does this expand me or make me want to retreat?
Contract, yeah.
So, whatever language you use, gut, instinct, it's really looking at that dichotomy. Am I open or closed? Am I, whatever language.
Yeah. Greg, way to go.
Well, thank you.
That was awesome.
It was awesome to spend some more time with you. I love our time together.
This has been absolutely fascinating, absolutely insightful. I'm very, very grateful on behalf of all the Ideas into Action listeners and viewers on YouTube, online, and anywhere else you're getting this podcast. Just want to give you a sincere thank you.
Oh, thank you.
What's next for you?
Well, as I'm not usually out of the house at 9 o'clock, as you all know, I just can't wait to get home to my bed.
Yes, it's been waiting for you.
Bed, when I get up in the morning, I look forward to going to bed. So what did you ask? What's next for me now?
Yeah, what's happening in the wild world of Gregg Brown?
What's happening in the wild world? Well, a couple of things. I just updated my website. I'm working with this great speaker business coach. It's one of those things I really believe for all of you listeners out there is that at different parts of our career and our life and our business, we need help from others. And it's a strength, I think, to reach out for help. So I'm working with this wonderful woman named Jane Atkinson, who's really pushing me out of my comfort zone to do stuff. So we've redone the website, got a new demo reel out. I've started work on my second book. I'm working on a course with Thinkific to add into my keynotes.
Amazing.
And my next big fun thing, I'm looking forward to going up to the Yukon, and I do some work with the government and the First Nations community up there, and I'm delivering a couple workshops.
Fascinating.
Workshops I'm delivering. Something about difficult conversations and essential management skills. So not all change, but it's all the same.
All the same. You're on the go. And where can people buy your book?
Well, they can buy my book at amazon.ca or
Okay.
.com. It's there. I think the Kindle version is really reasonably priced.
Ready, Set, Change Again is the title
Yeah,
of
it's
the book.
Ready, Set, Change Again.
Very quick read too. I found it
It's
to be
a
very
great-
digestible and easy to read.
Absolutely. And that's the reason I did it. So again, when I was doing my book, people were like, oh, you need 300 pages. I'm like, that's not who I am. I need handy books. I need something handy. And so it's 100 pages. It's got some great change models in it, some fun little prison stories, my take on some ways to lead change. And I have VPs who are like, I leave it on my desk. When people ask me about something, I just open it up and say, look at this.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted, something useful. My next book's going to be a little meatier.
Okay.
And all of my new stuff and podcasts and webinars and articles and publications are all available on my website, which is www.greggbrown.ca.
And your social handles, Greg, so people can follow your
my
adventures
social
online?
handles, you can all access them through my website as well. So
Okay.
greggbrown.ca. If you go to @Gregg Brown, GreggBrownTO, because I'm in Toronto.
That's it.
Yeah, @GreggBrownTO. That's my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook business page.
Perfect. Greg, again, thank you so much. This has been an absolute honor. Folks, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, I'm sure you had as much fun as I did, and you learned quite a bit. So be sure to follow Greg on all of the different social platforms. Check out his website. Go ahead, get a copy of his book. And I will see you all. We'll see each other next week at this time. So thank you so much for tuning in to another Ideas into Action episode. We're out.